So it's the first week of the Biden administration, and the president just issued 28 executive orders and 5 memorandums to roll back Trump administration policies to implement a national mask mandate on federal property and to generally address the symptoms of the coronavirus rather than the actual causes. In this episode, we'll cover the good, the bad, and the ugly difference between a pandemic response led by a politician versus a response led by somebody who has actual experience in supply chain logistics and funding of operations. My name is Joe McHugh, and this is the Liberty Strikes Back podcast. The president kicked off his administration with a blitzkrieg of executive orders to address the coronavirus pandemic. Addressing the pandemic is absolutely the most pressing issue of the day. However, we can do this and address liberty issues at the same time. After his first week, we still have a central bank that keeps the profits for themselves, while instead of splitting them with the people. We still have a system that's lacking in transparency and accountability. Qualified immunity is still on the books. The war on drugs is still ongoing. 400,000 people are still behind bars for nonviolent drug use. And we still have not addressed the fact that our elections are untrustworthy as long as they are run on software that is prone to hacking. We need to address the election integrity issue regardless of which party wins. The American people and the American Republic relies on trustworthy, transparent, and secure election software and processes to make sure that the results are accurate. Now, pandemic response involves 3 components: production, delivery, and funding of supplies, equipment, and vaccines, otherwise known as supply chain logistics and funding. Now, to that end, America has already the most extensive and sophisticated supply chain and pandemic response delivery system in the world, bar none. Go to your local doctor's office, your CVS or Walgreens on the corner, or even go to Walmart. Everything you need is right there. You can get your flu shot. You can get all sorts of other shots. That is called pandemic response. The government so far is not leveraging what we already have working in our favor. The system works because of the decentralized nature of the market. When people demand a product or service, and businesses fill the void and provide it to the people to earn a profit. This is the fastest and most efficient method for rolling out a national solution because the system is already in existence. It already exists, and it's effective already. Vaccine producers currently take orders from vendors and fill them as any other vaccine is filled today. People take the initiative to vaccinate themselves as needed. And this is how a market-based function system works. It's also how a liberty-based system works, with the individual making the decisions to suit themselves as needed when they need to do so. Now, there are limitations to the effectiveness of this response if left alone as the exclusive approach. And for example, densely populated areas with limited space and rural areas with few stores and slow supply chains could become problematic. Now, funding could become problematic too, and we're going to address those issues, the pros and cons of both, as we move forward. Now, the president's Sustainable Public Health Supply Chain Executive Order, which he just issued this past week, directs the government to, quote, secure supplies necessary for responding to the pandemic. Now, this sounds like a good idea. It sounds like we're actually taking a step in the right direction, and a lot of people feel good about it. In fact, I did too, until I read the executive order for myself. Unfortunately, as usual, the devil is in the details. Now, I don't know, I'm not going to say that this was intentional. I mean, President Biden is 78 years old, and it's probably just an unintentional circumstance. But I'm going to jump into some of the things that he's directing and some of the issues with it. So again, while this sounds like a positive step, the devil's in the details. The order directs the government to stockpile resources, which is an 80-year-old World War II era inventory management practice that the business community replaced long ago because the system is replete with waste and inefficiency. They've replaced it with something called just-in-time inventory. This strategy prevents you and me from going to your local CVS or Walgreens or Walmart for a vaccine because the government jumped to the front of the line and they wastefully stockpiled resources, preventing companies like Walmart, UPS, Amazon, CVS, and other companies from buying the supplies and delivering it to the store or even directly to our door. So the president has also put forth a vague plan to manufacture supplies in America, which, again, is a good thing to do. But he does so through a complex government-directed mechanism that have yet to be outlined, rather than a simple and straightforward directive to simply buy American. Listen, if you want to make sure that American products for a critical supply chain are manufactured in America, and we should, the president is right in that regard. Both President Trump and President Biden both want to do this. The simple and easy solution is not to raise tariffs as President Trump did, and not to go with mechanisms as President Biden's trying to do, but we need to just say the government's going to buy American, period. The government's buying American. And when companies say, okay, if the government's buying American, then that means we need to source our supplies on American soil. And that's the simple and easy way to fix it. Now, on the logistics front, the president proposed to stand up community response centers for a coordinated, centralized approach to pandemic response. And again, this sounds great. And it is an excellent complement to our existing system, because like I mentioned before, where you have densely populated areas with limited space or rural areas with slow supply chains, a centralized approach may actually speed the process. It also could complement the process, in which case people don't want to stand in line. They could go through a drive-through and things like that. But again, that can be done in coordination with, not in replacement to, the current systems. Now, again, this sounds great. It's an excellent system as long as it's used to fill the gaps and it doesn't impede the functionality of our existing system. Unfortunately, because of the stockpile resource plan, it does impede the existing system because it prevents those companies from getting the resources that they need that we would otherwise buy at the store and handle on our own time, instead of waiting for the government to tell us when we can do it based on some lottery or some prioritization of our status as a healthcare worker or otherwise. Now, as a result of the government stockpile plan, the government is required to anticipate supply and demand for vaccines in every part of America. That is something that even companies like Walmart and Amazon struggle to do, and Walmart and Amazon do a great job at it because they employ a lot of people. If the government wants to get into the business of Walmart and Amazon, I'm pretty sure Amazon and Walmart are going to win. They don't have the money to pay for the people to do the types of things that the government is now trying to do. Again, Walmart and Amazon didn't exist 80 years ago, but they do today. We're better today than we were during World War II. The strategy that we implement today needs to be reflective of today's reality, not the America that we had in World War II. So as a result, even the best logistician would underestimate or overestimate market demand in a given part of America, and as a result, vaccines will be wasted. And that's a bad thing. Now, the president also proposed a $2 trillion plan to fund the vaccine rather than funding the individual. Now, paying the vaccine producers directly, we exacerbate the supply chain and logistics problem, because that means that the government is now directly responsible for ensuring that the vaccine gets to the right place in the right amount at the right time for the right people, all before the vaccine goes bad, and also to make sure that we have the right supplies in place to refrigerate the vaccine when, again, Walmart, CVS, these stores, Walgreens, they already have these systems in place. So we need to leverage that. And this is a process that the market has proven to be more effective than the government. And that's the reason why the market is doing it and not the government. Again, in America, we believe in a market-based capitalist approach to solving problems. And if we wanted to be Soviet Russia, then we had that chance, and we chose not to do that, right? So rather than funding the system and hoping the government will hit a bullseye with their estimates, we would be better served by funding the individual so that we can return to normalcy faster by going to the doctor's office, to CVS or to Walgreens to get a vaccine when we want it. Now, overall, the president's plan sounds good. He's trying, but President Trump tried too, and that wasn't good enough. The reality is that this plan shows America that neither President Trump nor President Biden has the experience to implement a system to save lives in a maximized efficient manner without exacerbating the problem with an 80-year-old World War II era strategy. Now, again, much has changed since then. Businesses have invented something called just-in-time inventory practices and supply chains to deliver services faster than ever before when they're needed. Now, we can sit at home now and order groceries and have them delivered on the same day. There's no reason why we shouldn't be able to do the same thing with a vaccine. So, again, it's not 1940 anymore. We, the people, deserve better than an 80-year-old strategy that unwittingly and unnecessarily puts the people at risk and harms the market and prolongs the pandemic. Liberty is clean air. Liberty is fresh water. Liberty is healthy, organic food. Liberty is money that retains value over time, and a constitution that is applied evenly to all people at all times, by default and without exception. And when we prioritize liberty and use that as the central directing, the directive in terms of where our policy comes from, then we will do a better job of keeping America healthy and wealthy through a cleaner, greener America. Again, my name is Joe McHugh. Thank you for listening, and I look forward to your feedback and responses. Thanks.